Hello, we're back in the A&P lab. This is Mrs. Popplewell, and we're going to review back over a few bones. One of the last times we visited, we went over the articulated skeleton and looked at the different bones. Today, we're going to take just a few minutes to go over some disarticulated bones of the skeleton. The first thing I want us to look at is the coxa. Okay, so this is the orientation of the coxa. This is the acetabulum, and we'll go over this again in one of the next labs. But this is where the femur, the head of the femur, articulates with the coxa. This is the hip bone, where you put your hands when you put your hands on your hip. This is where you sit, and the pubis is in the front. We'll go over this in more detail later on. This is the coxa. And the next thing we want to look at is the sternum. Now here's the sternum here. It is made up of 3 bones. You need to only remember that it is the sternum. But this area is called the manubrium and the xiphoid process. But just remember that the whole structure is called the sternum. Okay, if you were to do CPR, you would find this point right here and move up from there. With the disarticulated skeleton, this would be 2 of the 3 bones. This is real bone, so the xiphoid process has been broken off, but we just named this as the sternum. Okay? The vertebral column, and here are fused vertebrae here. This is called the sacrum. These are 5 fused vertebrae, the sacrum of the sacrum, and the coccyx would be attached to the sacrum. In the lower leg, we have the long bone of the lower leg. Along with the tibia, we have the fibula. This is the thin bone. It is lateral to the tibia. The tibia is medial, and because this is on the outside of the lower leg, it is more commonly broke than the tibia. And you can see that it is much smaller than the tibia. Let's pick up the tibia and look at it. So this is the way this would be. And so this, because this is the outside, this is lateral, this particular tibia would be the right tibia and the right fibula. Fibula, tibia. Be careful of the spelling because spelling counts. Fibula is the smaller of the 2. The tibia is thicker, and therefore the fibula is the more commonly broken bone of the lower leg, and it sits like this. They work together. They're attached by a little bit of fascia. And so there you go. Okay, that was the fibula and the tibia. All right, let's look at the ulna. The ulna is one of the bones of the lower arm. Here it is on the articulated skeleton. The ulna is easy to recognize because this trochlear notch has sort of a U shape, but the ulna. Recognize the ulna by that notch right there, the ulna. The scapula is the shoulder blade. Now, this is the spine of the scapula. This is the posterior side of the scapula. This is the anterior side of the scapula. As we look at this articulated skeleton, there's the spine of the scapula. That's the scapula. Now, because this is the spine, and this area is where the humerus articulates, this particular scapula would be right here, and so only it would be posterior. So this would be a left scapula. You need to remember right and left of the bones, and this would be the left scapula. The radius articulates with the humerus, and It has sort of a drum head to it. That is the radius. The radius allows us to move our thumb down, thumb up, so we don't have to. The ulna is continuous with the small finger, and the radius is continuous with the thumb. The radius is superior to the ulna if we're in the correct anatomical position. And so when I turn my thumb downward, it causes this to pivot, and it actually crosses over the ulna. Okay, we can see that with the articulated skeleton. We hold everything just right. He's going to turn his thumb down and then bring it back up. So he does not have to move that ulna at all. That is called a pivot joint. So this is the radius, and it's easy to recognize the radius because of this drum head of the radius. This drum-looking head of the radius. Okay, the clavicle is the collarbone is the common name for the clavicle. It's sort of an S-shaped bone. This flat end here, this blunt end here, matches up with the sternum, and this flat end with the process off of the scapula right here. So it's S-shaped with the prominence of the S would be more anterior. So, and there's where the blunt end meets the sternum. So this would be the right clavicle. The clavicle is one of the most common bones broken in the body, the collarbone. The humerus. This is the humerus. It is the bone of the upper arm. The head of the humerus articulates with the scapula, and this depression here is posterior, so I can turn it this way and know that this is the left humerus, the bone of the upper arm. Pause for a minute and let's look at a patella. Okay, remember that we went through the class of bones. The class of bones were long bones, short bones, irregular bones, flat bones, and round bones. This is the patella. It is the bone that makes up the kneecap. It is a sesamoid bone or a round bone. And at the base of your thumb, you have a very small sesamoid bone, and at the base of your big toe, you also have a small sesamoid bone. The patella is the kneecap, though. It's a very large round bone or sesamoid bone. The femur, this is the head of the femur. This is the neck of the femur. This is the femur. This articulates with the hip, so this would be the left femur. You can tell it's a femur by this large head and neck. And this articulates. Now, just as a review, what's on the surface of the head of the humerus, and it would also line the covering of this part of the bone, and that would be articular cartilage. In specific, it would be hyaline cartilage, but it will be fine if you just remember articular cartilage. So this would be the left humerus, and I just happen to have a right coxa. Let's see if I have a left. Here's a left coxa. So the femur would articulate here. A rib. Now this is a rib. The rib would attach posteriorly to a vertebrae and anteriorly to the sternum. And that concludes a little review of the disarticulated skeleton.